I've been up presenting and I think I have this great line like from Billy Madison and nobody laughs at my joke. I'm like, from Billy Madison. And they're looking at me like, that was before I was born. Shut it, kid. I got a call one time about midnight from a soldier whose his house was on fire. I said, wait, like it's on fire? And he said, yeah, it's on fire right now. I said, did you? So 911 first. And then he had called 911, but in the interim, waiting for them to arrive, he wanted someone to talk to and manage his stress. I was just glad I was the second call and not the first.
Yeah. You're killing me, Smalls. Welcome to episode XYZ of the Hindsight, the Rhode Island National Guard official podcast. Today we are joined by Chaplain Lieutenant Colonel Timothy Bourquin.
Thank you for having me.
Oh, it was our pleasure, sir. So, normally we like to get started with some personal stories. So,
okay.
I know you're kind of a very recognizable face. A lot of people in our organization know you, but for those who don't, you are the 56th Troop Command Chaplain.
I am no longer the 56th Troop Command Chaplain. Just a couple months ago, I was switched over to Joint Force Headquarters.
Okay.
Our senior Army chaplain, Chaplain O'Garris, is preparing very eagerly for retirement.
Okay, sure. It's an exciting time.
It's a very exciting time for him. So in that process, we moved me over here to start the handoff.
Got it. Okay. So for those people who have not met you personally,
okay,
let's start with right back at the beginning. Once upon a time.
Once upon a time. So there I was. Every good Army story has got to start with so there I was. But yeah, so there I was, feeling called to ministry, but not knowing where God would have me serving. And I don't, at least at that point, I didn't find myself to be good at preaching or speaking. So I didn't want to be like the pastor on a Sunday morning. And then when I came to the chaplaincy, I found out the chaplaincy existed. It's a lot more counseling, a lot of crisis management. It seemed like a better fit for me. And so I looked into it. And then at that point, I just had to decide which branch. Oh, we have multiple branches in this room. I get nervous. I'm starting to sweat a little bit.
It's all right, sir. Even right now.
I'm pretty sure you made the right call.
And I decided that the Army was my, their model for chaplaincy is you take a chaplain and you embed them with a unit. So one chaplain is with a battalion, and those are his people, and the battalion they're meshed. Wherever they go, he goes. It was just a really good model. I love so.
And that's different from the Air Force model, then?
It's typically different from the Air Force model. That's a chapel-based model, so it's more of the chaplains are there, and everybody on base uses that resource. They are actually more and more adopting the Army model, where really get out of the chapel and integrated with the airmen. Okay.
So were you a seminarian prior to this, or is this choice what drove you into the seminary?
Yeah, it was actually, this drove me into the seminary.
Okay.
I was in high school, I was a solid C-ish on a good day student. Not necessarily for lack of ability, but just lack of trying. So I thought I would never go to college, let alone get a master's, let alone being enrolled for my second master's. So it was this was what was driving me. And I would not have gone to seminary if not for this.
Okay. So where in your educational career was this? Was this 18?
No. So I was married, and I was kind of picking away at college just because you're supposed to.
Sure.
But then once I figured out, what I needed to do, I finished up college and I started working towards the process. So to be a chaplain, it's like a 10-year process to get there.
Oh, wow.
So it takes you have to really want it. You don't fall into it.
Okay.
So at what point were you, did you commission or did you enlist first?
Nope. I got a direct commission.
Mm-hmm.
So there's, commissioning sources come from different places, ROTC, or you can go to an academy or OCS. But for chaplains and doctors and attorneys, you can get a direct commission. So right off the street into being an officer.
Okay. So is that normal for chaplains to sort of come off the street, or is it more normal to already be in the service and switch MOSs?
I would say it's 50-50. 50-50. Yeah. For those who are prior service, obviously they have a unique perspective. And I think that really gives them a perspective that they can identify with the airmen and soldiers, and they know what they're going through. And so they can meet them right where they're at. In fact, I know some chaplains who have enlisted for the sole reason of getting that experience. They knew they were going to be a chaplain, but first they went to basic because they wanted it. They wanted to understand what it was like. Okay. I was not one of those chaplains.
Fair enough.
So how did you find the chaplaincy?
Did Google exist back then? I don't even know. I logged on to Prodigy web browser and and I knew it existed. I just didn't know anything about it. So I just started online, and then I found a couple of chaplains, some contact information. I called them up, said, "What do you think? Do you like it?" And every chaplain I talked to raved about it. Just as a ministry and as a calling, it's just very fulfilling.
Okay. So you don't maintain a church outside of the National Guard?
So most National Guard chaplains do have a church because they're traditional M-Day. They come in 1 week in a month, and every other weekend they're at their church. Because I am the full-time support chaplain, I often work on the weekends, and it just isn't feasible for me to maintain a church as well.
Okay. Have you ever?
I have, yeah. I was pastor of Faith Evangelical Free Church in Colorado Springs. And then I moved from Colorado Springs to here, and it's just not possible, or I haven't figured out how to make it possible, I guess.
No, fair enough. So, I mean, hard to talk about chaplaincy without talking about religion.
Yeah, it's almost like they go hand in hand.
Yeah, almost as if. So, clearly, the majority of chaplains I've worked with have come from the Christian faith. Mm-hmm. About half of them have been Catholics, and about half of them have been some Protestant denomination. But we do have chaplains of other faiths.
That's right.
How does that work, so to speak? Like, what is that process? How does the Army or the Air Force select the religions by which it wants to bring in its chaplains? Yeah,
the only limiting factor is just credentialing. So some religions don't have a formal educational process. So we have Wiccan soldiers, and anybody can select that for their ID tags, and that's an acceptable religion within the DoD. But as far as credentialing for a chaplain, there's not a seminary, there's not a process to go through, whereas you can become a Wiccan chaplain. So there's only a few religions that actually have that process. They have the proper endorsements, and everything is in place so somebody can become a chaplain. So we have Christian chaplains of, like you said, every flavor. Jewish chaplains, those were the first two. It kind of mirrors our society. So it started off as those two, and then Muslim was the next one. And now we have a Hindu chaplain, and we have a few Buddhist chaplains as well.
Okay.
Not in Rhode Island National Guard, mind you.
Fair enough.
In the broader chaplain corps.
So, I mean, clearly, I think our service is something. I mean, the American public identifies right around 50% as non-practicing Christian, like another 30% practicing Christian, something like that. So, and I suspect the National Guard mirrors that fairly closely.
We do. The National Guard as a whole definitely mirrors the broader population. And then every state, National Guard is going to mirror its state.
Sure.
So here in Rhode Island, we definitely mirror our the larger population, and we are primarily a Catholic state, and therefore primarily a Catholic National Guard.
So what is that experience like, tending to the emotional and spiritual health of soldiers who are not of your religion?
Yeah, so, there is a misnomer. A lot of people think that a chaplain has to perform all of the other religious rites.
And by rights, that's RITES, not RIGHTS.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Can you get it like a little ticker on the bottom?
Oh, yeah, we'll flash it right up the screen.
All right, good. But that's actually not the case. So the motto that we kind of use is we either perform or provide. So I'm a Christian chaplain, so I can perform Christian rites. But if I had a Jewish soldier come to me and need something, if it was counsel, of course, I would counsel anybody all day. No, I take that back. People are listening to this. I can't counsel all day. Some have tried it. I can't. But I will counsel anyone. But when it comes to the religious part, the Jewish soldier wouldn't want me to try to muddle through. My Hebrew is horrible.
Mine too.
Yeah. And the same with Catholic. So I'm a Christian chaplain, but as far as the rites of the Catholic Church, the Catholic Church hasn't authorized me to give the Eucharist or any of the Catholic rites. So they don't want me to, and I wouldn't because of my faith. So when that happens, I religiously take care of the people who can identify with me and want me to be that for them. Everyone else is I have to find a resource for them. So it's a religious resource, but oftentimes it's counseling. Like I said earlier, a lot of crisis management and intervention. And for that, it doesn't matter. Oftentimes, especially in crisis, it doesn't matter what religion you are necessarily. You just need help, and you need someone to talk to. And the chaplain is a good person for that, because we, as clergy, we have 100% confidentiality. So folks can come to the chaplain and open up, and we, as a clergyman, we keep that in confidence forever. So a lot of folks find the chaplain a safe place to go just to talk, and that they have no religious affiliation or inclination. In fact, a lot of people will sit down in my office, sit down in a chair and say, "Look, chaplain, I'm not really into that whole religion thing, but," and then they'll go ahead and we'll talk about what they got going on. And that's totally fine.
So when you say confidentiality, you're talking about, legally binding confidentiality the same way a doctor, patient, or a lawyer customer.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah. In the National Guard, everything is a little bit, there's always a caveat, right?
Sure.
So active duty, 100% across the board, because there are Catholic priests within that corps. We had to go to the highest standard of whatever denomination had the highest standard, so we could all be the same.
Okay.
So it wasn't like one chaplain keeps confidence and the other one blabs everywhere. We all had to maintain the highest standard, and that was the Catholic faith, and that is so active duty across the board, 100%. But then with the state, Title 32, we have to follow state laws as well. So every National Guard chaplain might have a slightly different way of handling things, just because of their state.
Sounds pretty nuanced.
It is very nuanced.
On a case-by-case basis.
Yes.
Imagine that. Taking care of people is nuanced. Shocking.
Yeah.
So I see that you were deployed with the 82nd.
Yes. I was deployed under the 82nd.
Under the 82nd.
Yes. I was deployed with the 3rd Battalion of the 157th Field Artillery out of the Colorado National Guard.
Okay. Can you tell us a little bit about that experience?
Yeah. So that was 2009 is when we got there. We went to Ramadi, which at one point was the Wild West and a crazy place to be. by 2009, things had really settled down. And we were actually there for the transition of handing things back over to the provincial government. And so we did a lot of backup to the Iraqi police and soldiers as they were really trying to manage. And so while we were there, they had their first election that was really managed by the Iraqi people. So it wasn't Ramadi. It was Ramadi, but it wasn't Ramadi.
Got it.
If you know what I mean. So when you deploy, though, the chaplain kind of becomes it as far as resources go, depending on where you go, obviously. But there wasn't a lot. So I mean, the chaplain becomes just about a counselor, a spiritual guide, morale booster, just kind of anything you might need. You kind of go see the chaplain.
Sure. And how is that different, caring for soldiers away from their families under those kinds of conditions? How is that different? What kind of problems were you working with? Versus the Title 32 weekend stuff.
Yeah. Well, a lot of relationship stuff, which I deal with a lot of relationship stuff all the time. But then when you're deployed and you're separated from a spouse or a loved one or a boyfriend, girlfriend, and then there's this thing called Facebook. Don't know if you heard of it. Facebook happens to, and deployment. Those do not go well together. So that combination of deployment and Facebook has brought me a lot of work. And sometimes it's
both.
What's that?
I said you and me both, sir.
As a commander, yes, it's and sometimes it's nothing. But when you're deployed and you're away and you don't have eyes on a situation, a lot of times our imagination gets the best of us, and so that causes stress. So even just the perception of something not right causes the soldier some consternation. So a lot of relationship stuff. But they also do say, there's no atheists in a foxhole. The deployment wasn't inherently dangerous. I mean, being in a combat zone is dangerous, but it wasn't like bullets flying every day, at least not targeted at us. And so you would think maybe people don't think they're going to die today necessarily. But having all the extra time on your hands, some of our guys were in a guard tower, and their job, again, remember I said it wasn't terribly dangerous at this point, but their job was still to sit there for 12 hours and look straight. They had a lot of time to think. And when I would go by and do my rounds, they had a lot of time to talk, which is awesome. I mean, that's what a chaplain lives for, is a captive audience.
How would you say that experience impacts the way that you practice today?
In bringing the deployment experience back? Mm-hmm. The deployment experience was a crucible. So it's like getting 5 years of ministry experience kind of down to 1 year. So it was a great experience because I came out with experience. Just when you think you've seen it all, there's always the next one, right? So, which is one of the things I love about the chaplaincy is no 2 days are ever the same. And I'm the kind of person that likes a little variety. So for me, that's a good thing. You never know what time of day the phone's going to ring or what's going to be at the other end of the phone. So just the experience was great. But then being away from my family, at that point, I have 5 kids now. At that point, I had 3. I had 3 kids under the age of 2.5 or 3. They're all very close. So what my wife endured was probably worse than what I endured. But I understand the separation, and I saw my son walk for the first time on Skype, really sketchy Skype at that, very shuddery. But so I understand what it's like to be separated from family and the difficulty. I mean, I had the same difficulties that the other soldiers were dealing with, just missing home and dealing with eating boiled steak. Looking forward to Tuesday, boiled steak night. Oh yeah, good stuff. I endured those same things, so I understand.
So that brings up an important topic for, all of us trying to balance our lives. So how do you balance that military and that family life?
Are you asking me, assuming that I know how to do that and I do it myself correctly? It's hard. It is very hard. And being a chaplain, I think not just me, but all chaplains, we get into the game because we love people, we want to serve people. So to say no to a person, or to say I can't, or I'm not the best resource for you, is hard to do. So to not be on, you really do have to be intentional. It doesn't just happen. The balance you don't just magically find the equilibrium. You actively have to figure it out. And so that's, just carving time away, good open communication with your spouse, just to see what they need, and then to find compromise to make sure everybody's satisfied.
Yeah. So I love that expression, serving people. And so I'll preface this by saying this story is going nowhere. It has almost no point, but it's on my mind as we talk about serving people. The relationship between commanders and chaplains is always interesting. I was very jealous of our battalion chaplain overseas. Chaplain Nogueras Jr.
Yep.
Super good dude. Unbelievably good dude. So let's just put that on the table. Love the man to pieces. I was always very, very jealous of him. Some of my soldiers frequently went to him with problems, as soldiers are wont to do. And it was always very, I don't know how to say it. I was always very jealous that they would go to him and not me.
And then probably at some points, he's playing the good cop role, and here comes Mark, kicking in doors and slamming things and playing the bad guy role, right? Unless you can pawn that off on the first sergeant.
Sure. And, oh man, did I have a first sergeant who loved that role? So that was helpful. But no, I think that's a really important relationship. I wish I had developed differently, and I wish I had developed better. And looking back, I wish I hadn't been jealous, because he really was this incredible resource that sometimes there are soldier preferences that are just outside of a commander's control. Whether they have a pastor or priest back home and they're just used to going to that sort of resource, or he just happens to be in the right place at the right time. Yeah. That really is your job, right? You're tending to the emotional and spiritual health of soldiers. So I guess for all the company commanders out there, my encouragement would be don't be jealous of that chaplain. Lean on him. That he's an incredible resource.
Yeah, when that relationship works well, it's incredible. Because the chaplain is a safer place to go. The chaplain can kind of catch folks who might be trying to stay under the radar. The chaplain often can see those. And sometimes we see them and, like I said, 100% confidentiality. And things are taken care of. But when it's a team effort and the goal is taking care of soldiers, that's awesome. If everybody wants the same thing and it works really well.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's transition back home here to Rhode Island and talk about some of the ways and some of the programs that you work here to care for the Title 32 soldiers.
I think we have to bring his mic up a little.
Oh.
Yeah. Because he's a little taller than our previous guest.
Yeah, fair enough.
So do we have to start over? Did any of that?
Yeah, we're taking it from the top.
I think some of it would have been a little soft, but I think we got the.
I don't know. I think his level's actually pretty good.
Uh-oh. Am I going to be one of those ladies from Saturday Night Live? Have you?
I don't watch.
Oh, it's probably. Oh my goodness, I'm dating myself. This is probably in the 90s. There was a Saturday Night Live skit where there's like a public radio thing, and they're like, there's really soft spoken, like, wow, yeah, that's great. Okay. Awesome.
Is that like Tina Fey? Who was on that?
I don't know.
Yeah, I
The
feel
lady who did
vaguely-
Superstar, she was one. Molly something?
Molly Shannon.
She was one of them, and then there
Yeah.
was another.
Oh, okay, it's
Yeah.
vaguely coming back to me.
Yeah. Wow.
Okay, good. Yeah, that actually is, it's embarrassing when that happens. Like I've been up presenting and I think I have this great line like from Billy Madison and nobody laughs at my joke. I'm like, from Billy Madison. And they're looking at me like, that was before I was born. Shut it, kid.
You struggle with the same thing we struggle with, which is making sure our references match our audience.
Yes, that is always the goal. You just have to, stay up on it.
Mm-hmm.
Like I apparently don't do very well.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
So, let's talk about some of the programs that. that
Oh
we
yeah,
have
sorry,
here
I
at
didn't
home.
mean to.
No, not at
derail
all.
it with my Saturday
Actually,
Night Live.
we rather like derailing it. Makes it a little more fun to watch.
Yeah.
Program. So the chaplain, number one is spiritual. And then the counseling we do. And the counseling we do is spiritual counseling, unless you have a chaplain who also has a degree in counseling, which sometimes happens. But we do pastoral counseling, which is very focused on, it's more immediate. It's not a long, ongoing counselor relationship. Or if the person is a person of faith, it's how will your faith affect what's happening? How can we leverage that resource to affect what's happening in your life right now? So that's our primary, the spiritual thing, primary. In fact, the reason we're in the military at all is because of the Second Amendment. So you have a free, the right for, did I say Second Amendment?
Yes, you did.
You have
Freedom
so
of
we
religion.
want everyone to carry a gun in the military. So we have chaplains there. No, that doesn't work. It wasn't the Second Amendment, but you have a right to free exercise of religion. Mm-hmm. If the government is taking you away from your parish, your church, and they are moving you away, the government is getting in the way of your right to practice your religion.
Okay.
And so George Washington actually established the first chaplain corps. So they established the chaplains so that even if the government says you have to go over here, there's still a resource that can help provide for that free exercise of religion.
It's kind of an impressive lineage.
Yeah.
Yeah, George Washington.
Pretty sure that guy knows what he's talking about.
Yeah, if it was good enough for George, it should be good enough for all of us.
Sure. With the exception of dental hygiene. We probably shouldn't emulate that.
It's come a long way.
Yeah, it's come a long way. Yeah, I saw his dentures. Is that weird? I saw his dentures a couple months
Are they
ago.
in a museum?
A couple months ago.
Yeah, in May, actually, last
Wow.
month. Yeah.
Wow. So you went to, I assume, the Smithsonian.
No.
No. Where are his dentures?
That's weird, right? If I don't explain this.
It's going to be really weird if it turns out it's in your desk.
His dentures are on display in Mount Vernon, where he
Oh, no kidding.
lives. Yeah, there's a great museum there, and
I've been there twice. I don't remember his dentures.
you're missing out.
Apparently.
It apparently stuck out to you, though.
Yeah, it's worth the price of admission. Yeah, it's great. It's free, but it's worth it.
I have to say, worth the price of admission was the little fish drying hut down the. So if you leave his mansion, you take the path down
Down towards the water?
down towards the water.
Okay.
They have this little fishing village there, and they have a stone mill. And anyway, that was my favorite part of Mount Vernon.
Okay.
Was
Yeah,
that-
it was awesome. I would go back
Sounds
there in a
like I need
heartbeat.
to go.
Yeah, you
it's
definitely should.
Very, very good.
The gift shop's pretty good too.
So we talked about the spiritual, and what's another important aspect of what the chaplain corps does?
So advising commanders is another big thing of what we do. Religious accommodation. If a soldier, a Muslim soldier, says that part of his religion is he wants to wear a beard. He needs to wear a beard to fulfill his religion. In the military, the U.S. Army, Air Force, we are behind the times. The Canadians can wear beards. The Dutch can wear beards. The Germans. And here we are every morning scraping at your face. I'm not bitter at all. So
That razor burn is a sign of discipline, sir.
it is, right. Every morning. I do it for my country. So where was I? It's your job to keep me honest.
The advisor to the command staff.
Right. So if the soldier says that he needs to wear a beard, there is a process in place to get that to happen. There are provisions for religious accommodation. And so advising how that works, and the chaplain would have to do an interview with the soldier just to see if it is, in fact, a true, honest belief. I heard a story one time of a guy who said that it was in his religion that he had to wear an earring. So he sat down with a chaplain, and the chaplain's like, I've never heard of this religion. Can you please tell me more about it? And he couldn't tell him any more about it. So that particular guy didn't get his accommodation. But that's something we do is advise commanders both on that. And then when we're deployed on religious matters. So when I was in Iraq, predominantly a Muslim country, how does the religion of the people where we are, how does that impact mission? The chaplain is kind of the first subject matter expert on that, and then very quickly the S2 kind of kicks us out, and they take over. But a lot of time it's hand in hand, and the S2 is more PowerPoint, and the chaplain is more, he actually understands that today is a holy day, and if anything happens today, it would be a bad thing. So we advise commander on that as well. And then beyond that, I've said counseling a few times.
Sure.
We do a lot of counseling on all matters. Like I said, I get a lot of relationship stuff, but I think that kind of happens. I think I see a lot because people know that you can go to the chaplain with that issue, with that problem. But all kinds of reasons you can use your chaplain. I got a call one time about midnight from a soldier whose his house was on fire. I said, "Wait, like it's on fire?" And he said, "Yeah, it's on fire right now." I said, "Did you?" So 911 first, and then he had called 911, but in the interim, waiting for them to arrive, he wanted someone to talk to and manage his stress. I was just glad I was the second call and not the first.
Yeah, sure. That's pretty intense.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I used to work at VA Boston. I was in HR, and I did hiring for the hospital. And somehow a poor veteran in crisis was routed to me. And I was trying to get more information from him so that I could get the right people to get in touch with him. And just that sent him into a spiral, and he hung up on me. So I got as much as his name, and I had to quickly identify who the nurse care manager for that individual was and be like, you need to call him now. Because, you don't want to be that first call. Like you said, you want to make sure that they have as little obstacles as they can to getting the help they need.
Right. Yeah. And again, that's a good plug for the chaplain, because you can come to see the chaplain for anything. And so it's just this great open door where there's no obstacles in the way. You can just tell your commander, hey, can I go see the chaplain? It could be about anything. And so very few obstacles to get help.
Yeah. And, if you aren't the right resource for a particular problem, I mean, I don't think anyone knows as many resources or is plugged into as many resources as you are.
Yeah. I kind of like to talk about the chaplaincy and make it look like we do everything just because it makes us look cooler. But really, that's not true. There are incredible resources out there. And so, yeah, we do have to take the team approach, like the fire department, let's say. If somebody's house is on fire, it's not going to just be the chaplain, but there are other resources that need to be enacted. If somebody's out of work, we can talk about the stress of the situation, but the actual logistics of you need a job, we bring in other people with the soldiers, airmen's permission, of course, but bring in other resources to help.
Plug for the Rhode Island National Guard employment program, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So the inside the Soldier and Family Assistance Center, there is the Rhode Island National Guard Employment Assistance or Employment Support Group. Mm-hmm. We just did an advertisement for them because we have, I think, about 50 or so soldier and airmen coming off of 502F in the next couple of months who do not have jobs lined up.
Okay.
So we had a spot for them, and if you're listening to this now, that group, we'll put information in the description below.
And the chaplain can help you manage your stress.
Hey, there you go.
There you go.
Yeah.
So I want to talk a little bit about the Strong Bonds program, because I have intended to go more than once and have gone precisely nonce. That said, the people I do know who have gone have said it's a valuable resource and have enjoyed their time at Strong Bonds. So let's talk about that for a second.
Okay.
Yeah. I've never been either, so I want to know what it is and why do I want to go?
Why do you? Okay. I'm there. Is that not enough? Where's this conversation going? I don't understand what you need from me. So Strong Bonds is a DoD program to help keep the soldier and airman healthy, to keep their relationships healthy. If relationships are strong, then that individual is stronger. As a commander, I'm sure you saw when there's trouble back home, it just affects the soldier.
Yeah, absolutely.
So if we can keep those relationships strong and intact, it makes the individual that much more operational, that much better. I know it kind of takes some of the fun out of it to say that the DoD is doing it for an ulterior, not just because they love you and they want you to have a nice dinner. They actually have a purpose behind it, is to keep everybody ready and operational. So Strong Bonds is a great program that is available to married couples, single folks, and families as well, events with kids involved. We do dinner events or weekends away. So let's see. A typical dinner event, let's say for singles, we had an event in March for single soldiers and airmen. Dave & Buster's has a private room, and this was during the pandemic, so our venue options were pretty limited of who would actually host us. But Dave & Buster's has a private room, so we had a great meal together, just having a great time talking around tables, getting to know one another. People who didn't know each other because they're from different units or different branches, they're getting to know one another. It's not a mixer, but it is cool that you get to see, the purpose of it isn't to hook up, but to get to know other people who are going through the same kind of stressors and in the same point of life that you're going through. It's great. And then after dinner, we move into the training part of it, the resiliency training. So for a single soldier event, it might be more of maybe not always about relationships, because some single soldiers aren't looking for a relationship, which maybe probably is a wise thing in a lot of cases. So we don't want to focus on how to get into a relationship if that's not even what you want. So a lot of times we focus on just how you can be a better you. Resiliency skills, how to set goals and achieve goals and those kind of things. We do the weekend away as well, which is, and everything is free for the service member and the family. So going away to a hotel in Newport and having free meals and free hotel, and I'm there.
Oh, there you go. I'm sold.
What, right? So we do try to find a balance of the training part of it, but then also it's just free time, because it's nice to get away from the stress at home. There's no dishes to do. There's no dog to walk. You're just away at a hotel. You got to have opportunity to get away. So
I've listened to some of your stuff about resiliency, and I think one of my favorite things that we've worked on with you is the hunt the good stuff kind of stuff. I don't know if you want to, is that stuff that you would do during the Strong Bonds?
The Hunt the Good Stuff is part of the Master Resiliency Training curriculum. And that's a whole nother program. But because I'm certified to train that as well, it's awesome that I get to pull from that and use some of that within the Strong Bonds. So Strong Bonds has other curricula that they use. I believe it's 11 we're up to now of different things we use. So some of it you've probably heard of, like Stephen Covey's 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. We have a training program based on that book. And then there's that book has been adapted to how to have a healthy relationship, healthy marriage. And so we can do that too.
Sounds like it offers a lot of self-improvement opportunity.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. And it takes the individual. I mean, we're providing a space and information, and then we leave it up to the person to decide at the end of it, decide what they want to do with the information they now have.
Yeah, I think it's good to, especially for committers, to foster a culture that says, you work hard, but you also have to schedule in your day time to take care of yourself and improve yourself. Mm-hmm. So I think it's great that, Chaplain Corps can add to that perspective.
Yeah. Yeah, we let that fall to the wayside way too often, right? We focus on, I have to take care of my body. I have to watch what I put into my body. I have to eat right. I have to take care of it. I have to sleep. I have to work out. And we're so focused on staying healthy. And yet at the same time, we're totally neglecting our emotional health and our spiritual health and our relationship health. But we are a holistic being, and to be really healthy, we need to hit all those areas of our lives.
Oh man, I'm feeling personally attacked right now. Yeah. So apologies to my wife. I am an absolutely appalling balancer of time.
There's a way you can make it up to your wife. You could bring her to a Strong Bonds event.
When's the next one?
July 16th, Friday 16th. Night.
Where is it?
Davenport's restaurant in East Greenwich. Okay. No, not East Greenwich. East Providence.
East Providence.
Yeah.
Nice. There's one near me in Cumberland.
Oh, yep.
I go there a lot.
Okay.
So if I wanted to go to that, where is there a website? Is there an email address?
Well, it's funny you should ask. We're between websites. Okay. The Strong Bonds program is. The contract ran up, and so they're doing a thing. So the best way to sign up is just to call me directly. So
we could flash that across the bottom.
Okay. Yep. We will flash your office number across the bottom.
All right. 401-275-4070.
All right. Perfect. So we were talking about taking care of yourself as a physical individual. And we alluded to, or you alluded to, some other facets of health, spiritual health, emotional health, and relationship health. In your experience, and you can either talk about some examples in experience or talk about the curricula you use in Strong Bonds, how is it different and how is it the same teaching a couple to be resilient? Like, what are some of those disciplines? What are some of those practices that help a couple maintain resiliency versus an individual maintaining resiliency?
Well, the thing that helps a couple and makes the couple stronger than the individual is the exact same thing that gives the couple difficulty and stress that the single soldier doesn't have to deal with. And that's the other person. So it's awesome that as a couple, you fill in for each other, where one is weak in one area, the other one just steps up, and as a team, you're going the same direction, and you're working together, and you have goals, and you're doing this thing hand in hand, and it's awesome. And then also that same individual who you love so much, you just can't stand the way they chew, and they get on your nerves, and he's clipping his toenails at the table, and just like.
I see you've already met my wife.
No, I swear, I keep everything 100% confidential. Please tell her I apologize. Yeah, so that, relationships are stressful too, right? So we are training the couple how to be better together and stronger together. So with a single soldier, they don't have that built-in resource. They also don't have that built-in stress. So everything falls on them. Their success is theirs. Their failure is theirs as well. So if you just look at like finances and just that alone, a single soldier or airman, they don't have to run purchases by anybody. It's up to them. But then also, if you turn around and you realize that you're $10,000 in credit card debt, that was you. You have nobody else to blame. And digging yourself out of that hole is all on you.
We have a financial video for that too. Links
Bam.
above.
Man, we're like hitting them all, right? And then, but as the couple, so it's difficult because you have to work together to manage the finances, But then you also have.
You're killing me, Smalls.
Where was I?
So
Something about lights. Was I talking about lights? I wasn't talking about lights. What was it?
The stress.
Soldier gets himself in $10,000 in debt. It's his own
Yeah,
fault.
right. So you were asking about how it's different to train a couple versus a single soldier, and that's what it is. We do want the married couple to really view their relationship as, like I said, it's a team. So often we get distracted and we start to find our spouse to be the adversary, and when we get into that adversarial mindset, that's when things just can go bad quickly, because your spouse isn't the adversary. It's you and your spouse working together against all the obstacles that are out there. And so if we can help that relationship be stronger, then that couple can more readily attack the obstacles in their way.
Okay. And when a soldier or an airman is overseas, do you still play a role in the spiritual health of their families back home?
Yes, absolutely. So when a unit is deployed, really the ideal is that the whole community is going to come around the family and support them. And we have a lot of resources, not just the chaplain, and it does take a whole community to really support somebody. If the water heater goes and the spouse isn't there to help manage that disaster, the person's going to have need childcare. They're going to need a plumber. They're going to need a cleanup crew. They're going to need to figure out this whole thing, maybe call in sick to work or not get paid. And then all the stress of trying to manage this thing. So they're going to need a lot of help. So ideally, we are there ready to step in and help for whatever comes along. And so when a unit is deployed, the chaplain is involved with all the families, and we get to know them a little bit at the Yellow Ribbons. But then hopefully, we also have a relationship it's Rhode Island, so we probably have a relationship somewhere else too. And it's great when they can rely on the chaplain to be part of that.
You look like you have a question.
Listening to that kind of brought up a memory of my childhood. So my dad spent 36 years in the Rhode Island Army Guard, and he deployed with the 1207th in 0304.
Okay.
Or was it 0405? Between 03 and 05.
Okay.
And, you just hit that memory. It was Thanksgiving. I was homesick with the flu. My mom worked in healthcare, and we didn't have anybody to spend Thanksgiving with. And he called home and was completely distraught to find out that we didn't have anyone with him being gone. And immediately made some calls. And I had transportation to urgent care, and we ended up having Thanksgiving with my uncle. And it makes me wonder if at any point, because it was a stressful deployment for our family. He was an 18-month one.
Wow.
So it was very stressful for our family.
Yeah.
It makes me wonder if he ever leaned on his chaplain at the time, because there was just a lot. It was one of many things that happened. There was another time, I grew up in Woonsocket, and I was 16 when he deployed. So when he left, I was left to bring my brothers to and from school, to appointments and everything like that, kind of helping my mom fill what would have been traditionally my dad's roles. And somebody in Woonsocket was driving around shooting out people's car windows. And it was another call that he had to figure out from Iraq with very limited, telephone, web camera stuff, and had to
Because he just saw it on the news that it was happening?
No, he ended up calling.
Oh, okay.
And I ended up being like, hey, I don't have a window. And he was like, let me call a friend. But like you said, it's Rhode Island, so there's always a network. We're lucky to be such a small state with so many different resources and networks in close proximity to us.
Yep. Yeah, that's great. How is your dad doing, by the way? Is it Andre?
Yeah. He's doing good. He's enjoying retired life now, hanging out with the grandkids.
Sounds rough.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, sounds terrible.
Definitely 36 well-earned years. I'll say that for sure.
Yeah.
But I forgot you knew my dad.
Well, that's awesome. It's a family business for you guys. That's
it really
cool.
is. I'm the third generation.
Oh, you really?
Yeah,
I didn't know that.
Yeah, his dad he was a training NCO.
Oh, wow.
I believe way back when. I forget what unit it was. I was looking at his records recently.
When would that have been? The 50s?
No,
I'm
he was
bad
in
with
the
math.
Navy. He would have been in the Navy
Oh, okay.
at that time.
Yep.
And then eventually he would join the Rhode Island Army National Guard, which is how all of his sons joined.
That's awesome.
But God, I think he died in the late 80s, early 90s. So it would have been in like the 70s and the 80s.
Okay. Wow. That's very cool.
So I really only have one more prepared question, and then we'll just kind of kick the door open and see if there's anything else. Chaplain's assistants. How does one become one of those, and what do they do?
I am glad you asked, because hopefully that can lead into the next part about how to become a chaplain as well.
Oh, yes, we'll definitely do that.
So a chaplain assistant is no longer called a chaplain assistant.
Oh.
They got renamed. They are now a religious affairs specialist.
Okay.
A RAS. Yes, religious affairs specialist. I think maybe that's the first time I've said that out loud. So I still say chaplain assistant all the time.
You were reflecting on that.
I think that's what it is. It's only been for like 2 years, so I'm getting used to it. So anybody can become a chaplain religious affairs specialist.
We'll flash that at the bottom too.
Yeah,
Yes,
we'll definitely
thank
flash
you.
those on screen.
Yes, a 56 mic in the Army. I'm not sure of the code in the Air Guard. A chaplain. Can we edit this thing too? I did it again.
This is way too much fun.
I'm going with it. Otherwise,
How
I'm
many
going
years was it a chaplain assistant?
like
Years.
forever.
Yeah. So
Remember we talked about George Washington? Like, yeah. So it's kind of ingrained.
Right,
I've been in
religious.
for 17 years. So for 15 years, I called it chaplain assistant, and now I'm
religious affairs specialist.
religious affairs specialist.
And it is its own MOS.
It is its own MOS 56 mic. That individual doesn't have to be religious or ascribe to a religion. The job is about helping airmen and soldiers. So ideally, it's somebody who does want to help, right? So, but not necessarily. There's so many things that need to be done that it can fit. You know, I've seen guys who are they are not approachable necessarily as a chaplain assistant, but they're really good in the office. Office stuff has to happen. So to say that one chaplain assistant or one chaplain is better than another, but the job is so large and encompassing that everybody finds their niche. And so, I mean, the chaplain assistant is going to assist, but also be a religious affairs specialist at what they do as well. So they're going to do a lot of office work, and they're going to be the eyes and the ears for the chaplain, maybe saying like, hey, I was in the barracks and I heard this happening, and maybe you want to check in on this so-and-so. And then when deployed, that chaplain assistant is also, he has to shoot for two. The chaplain doesn't carry a weapon ever. So it behooves the chaplain to get that chaplain assistant on the range as much as possible.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
So is that an MOS that someone can enlist directly into,
Yep.
or is that, okay.
Yep, you can enlist directly into it or reclass. We have some folks who went ahead and got it as a secondary just because they like the idea of helping others, and they thought maybe someday they would get that opportunity to put that into use. So, but yeah, it's the AIT is down at on the Army side. It's down at Fort Jackson. It's I guess it would be down at Lackland.
Where basic training is.
Yeah.
I'm
I
not
think.
sure. I'm not sure where they go.
We could probably find that out.
Yeah.
We should also find out what the MOS or the AFSC is for you guys.
It's Paul Santilli. I mean, if we could get him on as a religious affairs specialist, chaplain assistant.
Yeah, that's what they are on the air side. So
Yeah.
Okay. So someone wants to be a chaplain.
okay,
He's taking a drink of water. It's
I need a drink for that one.
serious business.
Well, like I said before, it is a 10-year process, right? So it's the first thing an individual needs is they need to really to feel a call like that is where God wants them to be. Because it's going to be a 10-year process, you got to be pretty convinced that that's where you need to be. So there's two ways to come in. You can finish up your four-year undergrad degree and then sign up for your 3 years master's degree. And during that master's program, you can come in as a second lieutenant chaplain candidate. So you get the experience, you're going to drills, you're meeting soldiers, you're seeing what chaplains do while you're still completing your education. So that's 7 years of school, but then also you need 2 years of experience in a house of worship. And so that's 9 years it takes to become a chaplain. So that's one way. As an individual can sign up as soon as college is done, they can sign up for the candidate program.
That's their first 4-year program, right?
Yeah. So once their 4-year degree is done, they do have to be enrolled and accepted into a seminary. Then they can join the Guard.
And just to clarify, the seminary is not the same as being a religious studies major or having a religious studies master's.
There are, yes. So for the DoD does specify that what not every degree will work, and it has to be a certain amount of hours, and there are some specific stipulations. So
sure. So I mean, you're looking for like a master's in theology, master's in divinity from an actual seminary school.
Yes, it has to be accredited and recognized by the DoD as an actual real live institution.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. I just want to make sure that we get that right, because like I was a religious studies minor, but that wouldn't count for anything because it's not a seminary. It was just
and that was undergrad.
That was undergrad anyway.
Right. Okay.
I always think about going back to school for religious studies. No interest in being a chaplain, just to be clear.
Well, we're not done yet. I haven't told you all the benefits.
I think if I went back to school for a fourth time, my wife would probably divorce me.
Unless you invite her to a Strong Bonds.
Oh, perfect. There we go. Ulterior motive. No, it's just for dinner, sweetheart, I promise.
And then at dinner, you can pop the question, can I go back to school? Again, I'm sorry. I get off. Where was I?
We were talking about...
how to be a chaplain.
How to be a chaplain.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so one way is while you're in the process, and the National Guard helps pay, and there's some benefits there as well. Probably the more preferred way, I think, is to come in a little bit later. So you've done all your education, you've been in a house of worship, and then you decide, you know what, I feel like there's more that I can do. I want to give back to my community, my country, or maybe you have a family connection to the military, but something is driving you to the military. So you've already credentialed, you have experience, and then you're jumping in. That way, that's really the best. If you are a experienced, competent professional, we can figure out the whole military thing.
Sure, that's
later.
the easy part. Right?
That's the easy part.
Sure.
And in fact, in the Army, the Air Force as well, they you send you away to school and teach you all that. So the first 4 weeks are all about how to march. I think it's the left foot you start with your left, and then after that you do the right. So they teach us how to do that and how to tuck in our shoelaces and how to sleep in a tent and all that kind of stuff. So we'll teach that. The Army figures that stuff out. That's the easy stuff.
Okay. So who should be a chaplain, or who should consider being a chaplain?
What's a good fit?
What's a good fit? Well, one of the things that I think is a hang-up for a lot of folks is the pluralistic environment. Like we were talking about before, there are different religions. And so I'm going to get a knock on the door from somebody who's not of my religion, or somebody who's atheist or a complete heathen. They want nothing to do with God. They just need to talk to a chaplain. And that's totally cool. Not cool that they're a heathen. It's cool that they are still seeking out resources.
It's really cool that we got away with using the word heathen on the podcast. That's a new one for us.
Basically an open door.
Yeah, totally open door.
You don't turn people away.
But in that conversation, I let the individual lead where we're going. So if that heathen comes in and sits down, I don't go directly to tell me about your relationship with God. So some folks who are in ministry, that is their go-to. That would be their first question. So in this environment, you really just have to realize that there's different perspectives. It doesn't change your beliefs, but the people you're working with are going to have different beliefs than you. If you work in a church, the pastor, the youth pastor, the church secretary, everybody believes the same. So you're working with people who...
It's all homogenous.
It's all homogenous, yes. So it's just it's a very different environment, which isn't easy for everybody. So you do have to be comfortable with hobnobbing and rubbing elbows with people who don't even respect what is very most important to you, which, that alone can be difficult. But that's not a chaplain thing. That's, soldiers and airmen, they deal with that too. Their religion is their faith is their most important thing, and somebody else in their unit just thinks it's pointless.
Sure.
So
it sounds like somebody who's open-minded.
Yeah. Willing to work with anybody. And like I said, you keep your own beliefs, but you also have to serve anyone.
And they wouldn't have to give up their church.
In the National Guard, no.
Not in the National Guard.
No. We have all our chaplains now. They have churches. One is a chaplain at the Harvard Business School. Another one is a local pastor in Warwick. Another one in Pawtucket. Another one just got reappointed out to Portsmouth. So it's, they have churches, and this is an additional duty that they just want to give back to the community and country.
It sounds like the National Guard Chaplain Corps is just a really unique way to serve your community in multiple ways.
Mm-hmm.
You're serving the community where you have your church, but you're also serving another, unique community with the military.
Right. Yeah. So it is fun to broaden your scope. So if you're used to the four walls of your church, but then to get out and now to do counseling around the open hood of a Humvee as somebody's turning a wrench. It's not something you might get in a church, probably not. But in the military,
Sounds like
that's
a pretty cool church.
Right.
The church comes to you.
Call a recruiter, because that's how it is in the National Guard. Is we do our thing as we're doing the mission. So counseling happens around the open hood of a Humvee, or when there's a break in the ruck march, or that's when ministry happens and soldiers are in need. We meet them wherever they are.
Which brings us back to something you said earlier, a phrase that I rather like, and I don't hear overly often, is servant leadership. And you alluded to one of the things you like most about this job is the opportunity to serve soldiers. And I just want to tease that out. What do you mean when you say serving soldiers or refer to servant leadership? What does that mean?
Okay, well, it's a little bit of a leading question because I don't think I said the word servant leadership.
Maybe you didn't. Maybe
I think that's you.
Yeah.
But I think it's a great thing to talk about.
Okay, let's talk about it.
So this is our second podcast today, and he's remembering our first podcast of the day.
Sorry.
No, see,
From
servant
a drill
leadership
sergeant.
is for what?
There was a drill sergeant that we were speaking with this morning.
A drill sergeant talking about servant leadership?
Yeah.
If you haven't met Sergeant First Class Dennis Mendes, you're missing out.
It was a drill sergeant talking about service leadership. I knew it was him.
Yeah.
There's no question about who that was.
Super good human.
Yes,
Just a good
absolutely.
Yeah.
Who, by the way, is anybody listening to this?
Not
Who
really.
is, by the way, doing his religious studies. And so perhaps someday
Wow.
could be Chaplain Mendez.
Ooh.
That'd be pretty cool.
That would be awesome.
I'm definitely going to ask him
Are we
questions. though.
foreshadowing?
Because then
I feel like we're
then he's
foreshadowing
a
right now.
drill sergeant, or had been a drill sergeant, and now a chaplain. Then he can like knife hand you and be like, Drop
We're
down and
here
give
to
me 10 prayers.
We're here to talk about your spirituality.
It would be awesome. I would love that. Chaplain bumping you with the brim of his hat all the time.
Just brings a new edge to the chaplain code.
Yeah. And we need that. So hopefully he can progress that direction.
Yeah, that would be, it's a very, I think it speaks to one of the ways to become a chaplain, right? Is the nonlinear way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's right. Senior leader,
Servant leadership.
I've said that wrong a couple times already. Servant leadership. Leadership that you're leading for the benefit of others is, ironically, that's rare. I don't know why that would be rare. Not just in the military, in corporations as well, in businesses. You're leading people and you're having them do things so that you can prosper, so that you get commended, so that you look good, so you get the promotion. You're doing the leading for you. Whereas servant leadership is you are putting others' needs ahead of your own. In the military, that takes on just a little bit of a nuance because the soldiers' needs and the commander's needs are not the most important thing. The mission is yeah. Right? So even the commander's needs have to be subordinate to the mission. So, but with that mindset of those I serve are more important than me is it's very rare. I think the first time I heard the term was from, now I forgot his name. Dave, the Wendy's guy. Again, you guys probably weren't even born yet when all the Wendy's commercials with the CEO was doing the commercials. His name was Dave something or other. Anyway, he's this big CEO of a multi-million-dollar corporation, and he was regularly seen with a mop. Like he would do what needs to be done. He's no better than the person who normally mops, but they're doing something. If they're with a customer, to him that was more important than the mopping. So he'll take the mopping so they can be with the customer. And that was the first time I heard about servant leadership, as the people that you're leading aren't subordinate to you. You're not a better individual than they are.
It's about empowerment,
right.
Empowering them to be their best at what you need them to do for the mission.
Yeah, right. And really, the best leaders, they don't just get the job done. They get people in place so that they don't have to be there getting the job done. Everybody knows, everybody is empowered, and they could just be, they could pull out, not like they would just go put their feet up on the beach, but if they did, the mission's still going to continue, and people are being mentored and brought up for the next mission. So it's just a mindset thing that is huge.
Well, you'll get no disagreement from this side of the table. All right. Is there anything else you'd like to add? We're at an hour and 15 minutes, so I don't want to take up too much of your time. But did we miss something that's important?
Do you remember your leadership question? I felt like there was another piece in there I wanted to touch.
I asked, what did you mean by servant leadership and serving soldiers? I think, pretty sure that's what I asked.
Yeah, I lost it. I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Did you want to leave off on a moment that was impactful to you during your time as a chaplain, and maybe, how that could inform other people who are considering coming to the chaplain corps, inform them, why it impacted you and how it would affect them?
Yeah. Well, I think I alluded to this earlier, that the job is so big that there's a niche for everybody, even within the chaplain corps. I've known chaplains who are socially awkward and really introverted, and like you almost wouldn't want them to be out on the flight line because they're just so awkward. But that dude, man, the policy that he could write, something that we have to do is write memos and policies, and the administrative skills of that chaplain were ridiculous. that stuff has to be done, right? And it has to be done by a chaplain. So so there's a niche there. And on the other side, there's the chaplains who don't know how to turn on a computer, but man, they're good with people and they can build that rapport. And so really any personality can find a niche within the chaplain corps, I think. But I think the bottom line, the thing that has to drive you is caring for others, caring for soldiers and airmen. Because any story I tell you of like an uplifting, good story, or there was a good outcome, it's going to be that the soldier was facing adversity and they overcame. And there's tons of stories like that that I could tell you, but that's what it's about. I mean, when I see people's faith grow through adversity, when I see marriages hit rock bottom and they overcome that and they're stronger for that afterwards, when I see kids who are kind of not really even respecting mom and dad then come back in line and understand a little bit more about how to be respectful and how to speak to mom and dad, and those kid-parent relationships get stronger. When I see all those kind of things happening and people are doing well, that's what it's all about. So if anybody likes that, they should join the chaplaincy.
All right. Well, thank you very much for joining us, sir.
Sure. Yeah, thanks for having me. This was fun. I didn't know what to expect, but this was cool.
This was cool.
I'm not even sure what you would expect on a second invitation. This is different every time we do one.
Oh, okay. All right. Wait, so there's a second invitation? I haven't gotten that one yet.
I haven't decided yet.
Well, I mean, you're a frequent flyer for our different things that we do. So
Yeah.
And we're just, as of this morning, noodling around with an idea of a leadership series.
yeah.
Okay.
Where that last question about servant leadership would be the kinds of questions we would ask of some
okay.
of our more notable faces in
Okay.
the Guard. So I think maybe inviting you back for that might make sense.
Yeah.
But I mean, we're still very much.
Yeah, that's a good idea though. I think one of well, you can edit this part out. So one of the difficulties we have in the Guard is that we just don't have enough time to
Right.
mentor.
Yeah.
So you have so many things you have to do on a drill weekend, even if you wanted to be that kind of leader and lead people and help them to grow, and there's no time. So how do you teach somebody who's coming up how to be a leader? You definitely have to model it, but yeah, like a podcast like that, where they can learn from the people who have gone before them. This is what I found to be helpful.
In their own organization.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
And
I think that's great.
That problem compounds the further up the chain you go,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like a company commander barely has enough time to see his
Right.
4 lieutenants.
Right.
I mean, you can forget that battalion commander trying to see his lieutenants. You can forget the tag trying to set up a culture, right? So he has values.
Mm-hmm.
He has a vision for where the organization is going to go. And by the time that makes it down to the M-Day lieutenant who just commissioned last August,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's like,
It's really hard to get that command intent down to that M-Day status.
Yeah.
so
Yeah, it really is.
I think, yeah. So
Challenge
I'm a huge
accepted.
fan of, yeah.
Right?
Nice. Yeah.
We're a huge fan of the idea of the leadership series.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
All right, sir. Thank
All right.
you so much for joining
Yeah.
us.
Yeah, thanks, guys.
Thank you.